There are two major sides to this divide. One thinks it's healthcare, one thinks it's murder.
Let's start with the pro-choice side of the argument. We will cover four major arguments for it. No good arguments against it. Early fetuses aren't conscious of feeling, the right to life and the right to somebody else's body, and rape. Premise 1. To be a person, you have to be conscious or have been conscious. Premise 2. A fetus is not conscious or has been conscious. Premise 3. It's okay to kill something that's not a person. Therefore, it is okay to kill a fetus. The basic argument is that life's value comes from consciousness. And because fetuses have never had consciousness, they don't have value as people. But wait, there's a big problem with this line of reasoning. Do you see it? It is premise 1. To be a person, you have to be conscious or have been conscious. Let's do some thought experiments to see the problem with this. A person has just died. Are they still a person? Well, if you take premise 1, yes, they're still a person. They have been conscious. This clearly does not make any sense. If somebody is dead, they're just not a person anymore. Why do we need the second part of premise 1 anyway? We can change premise 1 to someone is a person if they are conscious. Seems easy. What about when you go to sleep? You're unconscious at that point. And as we just said, you're only a person when you are conscious. So therefore, you're not a person and you could be killed. And it wouldn't even be evil because, as we said, you're not a person. The next argument is the right to your own body. Premise 1 of this argument, people have a right to their own body. Premise 2 of the argument is this right is higher than somebody's right to live. Woman's right to her own body is greater than the fetus's right to life. And so, therefore, it is okay to kill the fetus. A way to illustrate this argument is the violinist. You wake up connected to a famous violinist. He will die if you are unconnected from him. But he will live if you wait for 9 months. He's completely unconscious. Do you have to stay? Most people intuitively know you don't have to stay with the man. So therefore, a woman doesn't have to stay with the fetus either. Now let's look at a counter to this thought experiment. When you withdraw support from the violinist, you're not actively killing him. But when you get an abortion, you're actively killing the fetus. And nothing justifies the proactive killing of another person. This argument is bad. First of all, some abortions just cut off the nutrients to the baby. So are they okay? Secondly, if you and the violinist shared your heart when you woke up, are you still allowed to cut him off? You're actively killing him now, so is it okay? As you can see, there are a lot of problems with the last argument, but here is a better rebuttal. The problem with the violinist is the lack of choice. We can only be given responsibility if we had the choice. Since the person connected to the violinist did not have a choice, they don't have to stay. And so have no responsibility to the life of the violinist. But women who did have a choice in conception do have a responsibility to the fetus. Let's look at another thought experiment. If somebody falls into your house because of an open window, they don't have a right to be there, even though you did something to contribute to them being there. So by this logic, just because a woman did something to contribute to the creation of a fetus doesn't mean she has automatic responsibility to that fetus. Like the prior thought experiment shows, contributing to something doesn't always make you responsible for it, but causing something nearly always makes you responsible for it. The only time the causer is not responsible for the consequence is when what happened was unreasonably foreseeable, like setting off a landmine as you go for a walk. What's the difference between cause and contribute? That's a good question. To contribute to something is to create the potential for something to happen, while causing is the actualization of that potential. Now let's look at contributing in more detail. There are two types of contributing. One where you have responsibility and one where you don't. The one where you have responsibility is where your actions had a reasonable, foreseeable outcome to do something bad or good. And the one where you don't have responsibility is when the outcome wasn't reasonably foreseeable. Let's look at that thought experiment again. Who is the causer? Well, the person who opened the window only created the potential for the situation, while the person who fell into the house actualized the potential. So they are the causer of the events and so bear the responsibility of the event. Now you might say, what about a person who opened the window? Don't they have some responsibility for the situation? No. A person falling into your window is an unreasonable thing to foresee. How does this relate to abortion? The woman and the man are the causers of the fetus and therefore are responsible for it. While the thought experiment before this sets out to disprove this point, it fails as it conflates contributing to an event and causing the event with each other. A woman's right to her body is not absolute. Yeah, before you hang me from the nearest lamppost, just let me tell you why I think it and then make your own decision. Let me make this clear. I only think this when a woman has made a special covenant with a baby by getting pregnant. I believe this because when a woman gets pregnant, it was her who caused this to happen, therefore making her responsible for the fetus. By having consensual sex, she is implicitly taking up the responsibility for caring for a child. Now let's have a thought experiment to illustrate this point. A woman and her baby are stranded on a desert island. They will be picked up in 2 months. There is lots of food, enough for 3 years. The woman knows she'll be picked up. She also knows there's enough food on the island for both her and her baby. There are no bottles or any other way for the baby to be fed other than suckling on her mother's breasts. Does the mother have to feed the baby? Yes. Well, now the baby has the right to suckle on the woman's breasts, which is part of the woman, so a baby has a right to a woman's body. There's no real premise for this argument, but that doesn't make it wrong. This argument relies on intuitions. I know this is a hard topic, but I had to address it. Let's lay the groundwork for the argument. If a woman is raped, does she have to keep the fetus? No. This is the intuitive answer. We will go into more detail why it is right later. Now, some people in the anti-abortion movement do say she has to keep it, but this is completely contrary to our intuitions. Why does this go against our intuitions? Because she had no choice in the matter. So how can she be responsible for carrying a child that she didn't do anything to cause? So we come to the conclusion, if the woman had no choice in the conception, she has no responsibility to the fetus. Let's now look at another counterexample. Let's grant that fetus has personhood just for 1 second. If a fetus is a person, then abortion is murder, and punishing that person for something they didn't do. As stated before, some abortion is just removal of the nutrient flow to the baby. I will concede that abortion that actively kills the fetus is wrong, but the withdrawal of support is not murder. Now let's look at another thought experiment to see the logic. A homeless man will die if you don't give him food. Are you forced to give him food? No, because even if it is wrong, you don't have the responsibility to the homeless person, and so don't have to give them food. Premise 1. The burden of proof is on the anti-abortion side. Premise 2. There's no good arguments against it. Therefore, abortion should be allowed. Honestly, I think this argument is right. By default, if you can't prove that the fetus has personhood, then it's purely the choice of a woman. But I think there are good arguments against abortion, so I don't subscribe to this argument. I will look at them in my next video. Some of them have a lot of problems, but I think overall they're pretty good. I hope I've given a good overview of the major arguments for abortion, and I hope I fostered understanding for people who are pro-abortion, as I think it's a very complex topic. And the reason they think people are against abortion is because of their religious views and not because they've looked at the evidence. I hope I've given a good overview of the major arguments for abortion, and I hope I fostered understanding for people who are pro-abortion, as I think it's a very complex topic.